Gran Turismo 7 is finally here. Can you believe that? Years after the first hints dropped, we are now finally able to get our hands on this piece of Gran Turismo history.
Speaking of history, a lot has changed ever since Gran Turismo 6. Some of it may leave a sour taste in your mouth. If you want to know just how much Gran Turismo is left in GT7, you should watch until the end.
And with that, welcome to our review of Gran Turismo 7. My love for GT goes back years into the past. Nearly 16 years after I first booted up a Gran Turismo game, I am at the same point I once was. I want to experience that part of my childhood again. This time in 4K and 60 FPS on PS5, where this review was done on.
Naturally, that's why I was super excited when I got my hands on an early copy of GT7. I wanted to test if this game with all its new features still created this old feeling for me. And what can I say? It started off immaculately.
Look at this beautiful world map. Straight out of Gran Turismo 4, with a nice graphics overhaul, it is by far the most visually appealing menu yet. And it brought some drops of salt water into my eyes. I bet you want to make me do that too, right? Well then go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe and tap the bell. So you are always primed and ready when we release a ton of awesome new Gran Turismo content over the next few weeks. But let's get back to the GT journey here. Right from the start, the game is very hands-on with what you have to do. That is mainly due to the new café feature. It is a place where you meet sort of NPCs that guide you towards your next objective. While I like the idea, it does seem kind of weird that this Luca guy is there night and day. There must be laws against that kind of work. Especially in the first few hours, the game can feel more restrictive than in the past. You have a few things you can do, but you also have the main quest, so to say. Which is almost always to make sure your NPCs are happy with what they see. Most quests consist of completing 2 or 3 races. Then testing a feature like tuning your vehicle, and competing in the championship, for example.
It is clear what they try to do here. Newer players should have a much easier time getting accustomed to the ins and outs of Gran Turismo than in previous titles. But especially for players who used some of the returning features already, it can seem irritating. GT7 definitely feels less free than previous games. I mean, you need about 8 hours of gameplay just to unlock all the features in the first place.
Having mentioned the returning features, we may as well look at them. Tuning shop, garage and world circuit are amongst them, and are known quantities here. You choose, you upgrade, you drive. The concept was always straightforward, and kept its charm here. The same with the returning license system, even if you can be fuming after missing the mark oh so short again.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
The used car dealership made a pleasant return as well. All rights from the time before 2001 can be acquired here. This reshape to give the used car dealer more of a purpose is cool, I think. Back in the day, it was more of an optional look, once in a while, to see if anything crazy was on sale. Now it is almost obligatory if you want the best bang for your buck. Definitely an evolution here. The rest of the car roster can be bought at the brand center. This includes new rides and concept cars.
What I personally found interesting was the integration of GT Sport. Previous Gran Turismo deviated rather much from the series' origins, but finds a home on the world map once again. This mode is meant as a serious attempt on esports racing. If you want to mess around with your friends, you can always do that in the more fun section called multiplayer.
The features are very well implemented, and do what they intend. Some may seem streamlined from what they previously were in GT, but we stay along for the ride. Speaking of, how does the heart of the game feel? Cars mark the cornerstone of what made Gran Turismo special in the first place. With so-called collector points, the player is able to unlock parts of the tuning shop, for example. Since the used car dealership is also back in town, the choice is yours what to take to the track. Well, almost. Most of the races you do have a suggested performance rating, which is shortened to PP. You can choose to ignore it, like I did here, and just evaporate your opponents with a much faster racer. But on other occasions, like the championships, there's often a certain car requirement, or at least a country restriction. I would be fine with that if I had the chance of skipping these races.
But especially if they're part of the Café Tour, you're almost obligated to tune some lower tier car just to compete there. I don't really vibe with that. It feels unnecessary to dump 20k in some Peugeot coupe, only to progress in a race and then never touch it again.
Other than that, you can collect and modify your cars along. There are more options to tweak than ever before. And even a full-blown livery creator, which reminds me of Call of Duty Black Ops back in the day, is implemented. The only thing I find strange here is that the roster of cars is slim compared to GT6, for example. A little over 400 cars are obtainable in GT7 at the moment, while Gran Turismo 6 fielded 1,100 cars at launch. I mean, you will still need time to fill your garage, but it seems odd that Polyphony would clamp down so hard on content. But enough about the surroundings, how does the gameplay feel? If you start up a race and have played GT before, it is like getting zoomed back to the past. Not just because of the nostalgic sounds in the menu, but also the on-track action is very much what defined Gran Turismo in the past. Physics feel refined, and thanks to the new Sophie system, the AI behaves much more naturally than in the past. This leads to a lot tighter racing from them, which varies through the difficulties, of course. It is still Simcade, however, so you won't be able to see more than visual damage on your car, and even if you semi-drift into every corner, you will be okay. But it is still closer to Sim than it is to arcade, I think. The handling feels different with every car, as it should. In previous titles, you were able to encounter classes where almost every car drove similarly. Not the case in GT7. I think the experience of GT Sport really helped Polyphony here.
Controls feel smooth, and especially on a PS5 gamepad, you have something to the extent of force feedback almost, with all the vibrations and resistance you get from it. Take corners for example. Opposed to previous models of the controllers, you feel the car through every stage of a hairpin, for example here. An upgrade? For sure.
Also fitting is the setting. So tracks and the environment feel like they have a purpose. Of course, classic tracks like Trial Mountain spark joy in my heart. But combine that with a feisty AI and an accurate controlling system, and I can get lost forever. Especially if you add the dynamic weather into the equation that Sony has been relentlessly talking about. During the early parts of the game, this won't be much of a factor. But later on, driving from one condition to another will definitely enhance your experience.
Let's get to the biggest point of improvement in my eyes, the visual representation. Coming into release week, most of the fans should have watched Sony's State of Play by now, so everybody knew somewhat how the game would look. But by God, it is beautiful.
Like I said in the intro, 4K and 60 FPS on PS5 is no problemo, señor. If you would have told me that Gran Turismo would ever look like this, I would have said, I hope so. If that is also the case on PS4, and if you should even buy GT7 on that console, will be a topic of an upcoming video. So be sure to sub to not miss it. Without praising it too much in this department, I may go out on a limb here and say I have yet to see a more visually appealing game. Ever. Every bit, every detail is just perfect. This could also be because of the very fitting use of light in tunnels, for example. Ray tracing is possible, but only in replays. This keeps the lighting from distracting you during crucial laps. That task will be handled by the breathtaking background of the Swiss Alps, for example. Gran Turismo 7 is a real showcase of everything the newer consoles are capable of. We will come back to that point in a bit. The audio experience is also very GT-like. Chilled beats in the menu, like you're waiting to finalize a business deal, and hyped, high-octane music during the races, which you can turn off, of course, and enjoy the car sounds instead. A very small thing that bugged me was that Gran Turismo 7 doesn't feature the sound of the starting engine if you change the car anymore. This little dopamine hit would have been appreciated, guys. Jokes aside, Polyphony has done an immaculate job of presenting the game here. Even if you don't like the gameplay, you still want to play the game. That's how appealing it is.
We have gone over pretty much everything you notice at first glance, and after diving into the game for a few days, I feel both happy and sad. This comes down to a few points.
I am happy because I got to play a numbered Gran Turismo after almost a decade. I got to revisit the times I played with my brother when I was little, or my friends when I was a teen. The game catches you in your feels and fills you with memories. In terms of how much Gran Turismo is in this game, I would say it definitely has a lot of Gran Turismo 3 in it. The titles are very similar in their intent. GT3 was released as the first Gran Turismo on PS2 and was a showcase of the console's capabilities. While at the time the predecessor had a lot more content to offer, Gran Turismo 3 was visually appealing, but not as massive. It was supposed to be a gateway for newer players to access the series.
You feel the same way with GT7 here. It is very tailored towards new players. The returning features are often what I described before, a catch just to make you feel nostalgic. But in terms of guiding the player, no Gran Turismo ever has been this hands-on. Racing is enjoyable, arguably much more enjoyable due to Sophie, but no revolution whatsoever. It's not like I am blown away by any of the capabilities of the game, more by the graphics.
I also didn't like the reduction of content. Of course, 400 cars seem like a lot at the start, but compared to what it was, it's less than half of previous GT games. I feel like I have already seen the same approach from Polyphony in the past. Reduce content, make it more accessible, and use the game as a sales argument for the console. Because let's be honest, the field of games for PS5 at the moment is still very slim, even years after the initial release.
Gran Turismo 7 bears implication for the whole console racing genre. Whatever this implication might be, can only be seen in the future. Either games like Gran Turismo will focus on a more streamlined approach to attract new players, or this is just the start of the storm. If we draw the parallel to GT3 again, that was followed by GT4, arguably the best game of the whole franchise. So maybe, just maybe, Polyphony is just getting started here. Thank you so much for watching this review. Be sure to check out our channel to see a video about the best racing games on Gamepad, for example. I'll see you there, and until next time, cheerio.